Well, last weekend, tens of thousands of Australians put themselves and others in harm's way, attending these rallies against the advice of the country's top medical experts. No one was shocked by the news yesterday, were they? That one attendee at last Saturday's Melbourne protest has now tested positive to coronavirus. With more protests planned this weekend, the Liberal member for Bowman, that's a seat in and around Brisbane, Andrew Laming, has called for those attending these rallies and defying public health directives to lose the equivalent of COVID-related government payments. Now, what's he mean by that? Well, we'll ask him now. Andrew Laming, he's a medical doctor by training. He joins us now from Canberra. OK, Andrew, if people turn up
Hi, Peter.
at these protests on the weekend, what do you want to see happen?
Well, Australians are horrified, Peter, that having done so well as a nation, on the cusp of relaxing, we're actually doing the one thing that's most likely to prevent that happening, gathering in groups, chanting and screaming. And that doesn't mean we don't respect the causes for which people protest or assemble. But if they can't find a safe way to do it, then the only option really is very, very stern police response and financial penalties. And I just made the point today, Peter, it is provisioned for in state law with penalties of up to $13,000, which is around about 6 months of JobKeeper payments. So for goodness sake, we just need a judiciary that will use those penalties as a way of dissuading others from protesting at the worst possible time.
When you called on this today, the PM was asked a question in a subsequent press conference and he said, look, we're not of a mind to do that. Earlier in the day, though, the Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann, says, well, this is something we should be looking at, certainly a conversation we should have. You're not asking now for the Commonwealth to withhold these payments. You're saying the states should use the laws that are there now and fine them adequately. Have I got that right?
Exactly, and they have the powers to do it, Peter. So you would be well aware that the Commonwealth only has very limited ways of compelling states to do things. We certainly can't change the arrangements for JobKeeper, JobSeeker. But taxpayers must be sitting at home tonight watching, thinking, we've paid a 16% of GDP response to COVID. We've reached into our pockets. We've lost jobs. We've seen our small businesses blown up. We've lost relatives to COVID in some cases, only to see this kind of conduct. And now, even this week, a farrago of other causes wanting to rally and protest as well and do the same thing. And states are taking different approaches here. Some are tougher than others. But ultimately, we can't always rely on the judiciary and certainly we can't influence them. But the laws are there to enforce it. And I just think protesters need to know, if you're going to turn up and risk infecting taxpayers with what you're doing, then you don't deserve taxpayer support in the first place. And I've challenged my electorate, if you want to go protesting, come and explain to me why you don't pay that money back to the Centrelink office before you head in and rally, because it's the most dangerous thing to do at the most inopportune time, because we're that far away from having some relaxations that allow the June holidays to occur, and that's over $2 billion of tourism spending that's at risk.
What do you make of this? Victorians copped more fines than any other state in the toughest part of the COVID lockdown. More Victorians were fined than anywhere else. On the weekend, about 30,000 people marched in Victoria, but only 3 were fined. The 3 organisers of that rally, and $1,600 each was their fine. How's that work?
Well, that's just hard to imagine. It's so weak. And of course, you can see the result. You've got more protests this week. And I don't want to go too far off my point, but obviously if one can have an assembly that's completely COVID safe. I mean, if you were to find a 20-hectare golf course, in that case, you can have 20,000 people, each with 10 square metres. And you could argue that may be a way safer way of doing it than jamming into a CBD town square. But of course, that's not being contemplated and it's not being permitted. So now we have this invidious Hobson's choice, where we're forcing police to act, who in of themselves are the target of resistance and the target of these rallies, sadly. And that's just going to lead to more people being sent to court. And I've just made the simple point. If they knew before they left home that you're risking all your COVID payments, and you should be volunteering them up, the $5,000, $10,000, and saying, I don't deserve taxpayers' support if I'm going to be spitting in the eye of taxpayers by attending a rally.
And what about the MPs? There was a raft of MPs who went against the official advice. You're a doctor. These guys are men and women, senators included, members of the House, all turned up at various rallies around the country. That's not a good look.
That's a terrible misstep. I think they all regret it. I've got my colleague from Brisbane, a federal MP, turning up in a red Labor Party shirt. Just make sure that the whole rally knew that the Labor Party was behind their right to protest. But he fundamentally misunderstands, Peter, that we're not limiting the right to protest, assemble or speak. We're just saying it can't be done safely under these current COVID conditions. So be imaginative and find a different way of protesting. And in some cases, it's more effective than a tired old rent-a-sign crowding into the CBD and abusing the government. It's time for something sharper than that and smarter. The Public Health Association's called for it, and organisers need to be way more financially liable so that they think a little harder about a safe way of protesting if it has to happen at all.
Well, Dr. Andrew Laming, thank you very much for your time. I hope the states, get some backbone and take you up on this because, as you say, taxpayers are forking out billions of dollars for people to do the wrong thing this weekend like they did last weekend. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks very much, Peter.